So we have a definite different font, which I like a lot better than the default font, by the way. So we got I don't know if this is the base resolution, but maybe they'll make it base 16 by 9. That'd be cool. And these name tags look like they're stock built in now. I actually don't like the style of having the name tag and the character portrait. But that's just personal preference. Yeah, there's also textured background for the RPG Maker MV doesn't allow you to do a pattern for the background stock out of the box. You can do an image that will cover the entire background. So if you want to have like a fade or something, you can do that. But you can't do like a texture for the background of a chat box. Okay, this looks freaking super high res. These textures are more than 48 by 48. For sure. They bumped up the tile sizes. Digging the default UI. Looks good. There's a couple things I would change, but look, this is for mobile too. So this is a mobile port, right? Because you have this graphic in the top right because it's for touch sensitive. So basically that means, because right now with RPG Maker MV, it's gonna be like you have to do the 2-touch thing for stock if you want to have a touch screen, which is the most unintuitive thing I can imagine. So making it to where you can turn on a menu button right in the engine makes perfect sense. It's like a duh thing that they should have had. Because honestly, MV works perfectly with mobile devices. I've actually ported mine to like a tablet. Well, it's not technically a port. I've played it on touch tablets because Windows has tablets, you know, and it works great. The only thing that's weird is the double touch. I'm smarter than them, Reihaku. You should know that. Look, it's a dream fragment. It's very unusual. Also, they probably built in the colored name tags, which aren't part of the core. So, like in text, having different colors throughout a paragraph is not part of the core engine. That's a Yan fly. Okay, we got the gnomes. Of course, 5-head. What is 5-head? Well, this anomaly is surprisingly nimble. How about we level the playing field? Oh, here. See another touchscreen functionality. The back button. Same thing. When you play it on mobile, I mean, this is to me is not as vital, but it makes sense. So for mobile ports, you have an embedded touchscreen. Before, the way you would do this is you would use YANFly picture images, and you would put them into the battle. So that's a big deal. That you have an in-engine. I think that's a really good addition. Very necessary, very useful. And you can click it too if you play with a mouse as well. For some people, that'll be more intuitive. Oh, whoa. Animations are getting crazy already. That's the thing I'm kind of mad about. I might switch my game over. Like, I might just move all the art over. 'Cause this right here, so basically what we have is we have 2.5D directional animation. So you can take these light things and like make them have a three-dimensional aspect. So it's like MV, I would say the greatest weakness is animation of that engine for at least what I'm doing, and it looks like they're fixing that, which is kind of a game breaker for me. That makes me want to switch over. I'm gonna keep working on my game though. But you notice recently I've been like more into just making art because I know I can move the art over, you know? So we'll see how it goes. Cure spell. Holy shit, animation, dude. And that's probably all gonna come right with the engine, right? So look at that death. Did you see that? New default death animation. Flashes. Also, the agility over the top. That's not a. You can. I have that with Yanfly, but the buffs over the top. You can kind of do that, but I'm pretty sure this is based on an icon, right? Not on the. Because the way it works now is there's like a specific state animation you can do, and you're limited to like the 9 that comes stock, and you can like adjust those 9, but after you make more than 9, you can't add any additional animations. It's something like that. It might not be 9, but there's a finite number that's around the single digit range. And with this, I'm suspecting that it's gonna be different based on the way that looks. Also, this poison, the other poison, I think it's only before the states were only 3 frames, right? So the default out of the box state animations were 3 frames long. This is definitely longer than that. I don't know how many it is, but there's no way you could do that animation with 3 frames. That's impossible. I'm an animator, man. I see all the frames. Also, this is another function. The cure spell, making him brighter. So this is not. So what you can do now is you can flash them out, meaning you just replace their color with white. What we have going on here is this actually is increasing the exposure of the image, or brightness, if you want to. And the difference between that and what you can do in MV Now, stock out of the box. In MV Now, you can just kind of cover the image with a fade with white. That's very different than brightening an image. Yeah, dude. So far, Renoro, to respond to that, there's only been one person who's done it yet. His name's Linky. He's another dev like me, and he's already released one game on RPG Maker MV, and he's working on his second one now. But he's actually done two. So the one person that has been able to get to that 100 points, he's actually done it twice already. So I already named his character, and I also put it so that he's like a guy you can fight in the game for fun. You don't get anything for fighting him, but he did it twice. So he's like my number one viewer is like double everyone else, but also, anyway. Yeah, dude, that's 2.5D right there. You can see it. Also, your art language is too big brain for you. Yeah, I guess that is kind of complicated. Like the difference between like covering an image with a white and having it be opaque versus brightening it. Here, I can show you. I want to show you, because this is okay. So we'll do it right on this image here. So the effect on the animation that we're seeing, it looks like this. Like it actually brightens the image like this. Okay? You see that effect? That's what you can do right in the animator. You can do that with plugins now, but you can't do it with MV out of the box, right? In contrast, what you can do with MV now, just to show you how shitty it is it looks more like this. So let's add a new layer over this guy. I'll put it white in. It looks, so you would go like this. Like you can just cover him, Like this is what you can do to like make somebody bright. It's like cover them with white. Here, you can see more what I'm talking about if I put this down here. Hold on. Duplicate. Okay, so this is how it'll look, right? Like you see the difference between that? Like this is what you can do now with MV. When you do like an animation with a on target flash. As opposed to this. That's a big difference. Right? Like this is way better. This looks more realistic. It's way more immersive. Way less shitty. Let me unbreak my stuff. Job well done. Strange. Okay, we got the tent change there. You can do that now. Okay, here's some more stuff. We got in battle weather effects. That's another feature that is not available out of the box. You can add it. I have it. I do it with Mog Hunter, but this is not a out of the box. Um, Also, this rain looks way better than MV's rain. And I'm assuming this monster is going to get brighter, which again is an effect you can't do in MV. Oh wow, look at this 2.5D animation. Oh, it doesn't necessarily need to get brighter. Man, look at how so these battlers the default ones are is it 64? These are not 64. These are higher. These are very detailed. Like this is sort of the goddess. Holy shit, dude. You see how smooth that is? Okay, another thing we should mention that is very significant. Out of the box, MV animates at 30 frames per second by default. This is at least 60 frames. It could be higher. You can't tell based on the video, but you can tell based on this video that it is at least 60 frames just by the way it looks. That's pretty much modern convention these days to have a 60 frames per second frame rate. You hardly ever see that not happening. Back in the 90s, 30 frame rates were pretty common because they were trying to emulate film back then. But since, nowadays that's unheard of to have a 30 frame rate game. It was strange that MV even tried to do that. So that's a really good addition. There's no point in having any game run at 60 frames ever. Yeah, that's possible. I mean, I wouldn't. So yeah, that's actually a good. So you're saying that your MZ uses GPU rather than CPU. I mean, there's different degrees of that. People say that MV doesn't use your GPU. That's not entirely accurate. WebGL very much will use your GPU. It's just not really optimized for GPU usage on any kind of competitive level. You know, it's just really behind the bat. It's but MV does use your GPU, and you can see that difference if you, for example, build the game for mobile where you don't really have a dedicated graphics card. Things like the tints and the hues, which destroy CPUs but have no problem on GPUs, they work terribly. They work to the point where the game is unplayable if you use a lot of tints and hue changes. Where because MV is WebGL based, it has no problem doing that. However, if you do try to things like image RAM, like loading in multiple images and keeping them in RAM, MV does not do that at all. It sucks. So like because of that, like my game, for example, if it was on a different engine that more fully utilized the Pixie engine, it would not require as quick of a hard drive. So one of the limitations of my game is if you have a slow hard drive, the game doesn't work super good. And the reason for that isn't because it really needs a fast hard drive. It's because the way the graphics cards work, they don't preload images in the same way that modern games do. So if you most games, the RAM in your graphics card will load the images for you entirely. Because it's optimized for graphical output, it processes those way faster than traditional RAM. So because of that, you'll notice if MV is very image heavy, it will break. Um, that's about as simply as I can explain it. But basically, big images, sprite sheets, for example, which you're required to use giant ones if you want to do animated bosses and stuff, are terrible with MV because one, the sprite sheets are bigger than they need to be, but two, the graphics cards have there's nothing in the engine that integrates the processing of loading those images. Somehow, because my best friend is a nerd like that, so I think I explained it pretty clearly. I don't feel like, basically I was saying you do need it does use a graphics card, but it doesn't use it in all the ways that it should. People say MV doesn't use their graphics card, and that's just not true. Okay, let's keep going. What are you? Why won't you disappear? Why can't I beat you? Okay, so that was something. If you watch this fade here, it's pretty cool, right? Um, that is not a fade. Okay, that is not a traditional fade. It's not just going white. You can see there's some chromatic distortion as you go from like, here, let's go through the frames individually. See, I can't really. I just play it. Okay, so you see this chromatic distortion here? Here, you see this blue in the background? This is not just fading to white, okay? This is a transition. That means there's a filter over what's going on, and it's making it so it does something other than just turning white. This is even more sophisticated than how I was talking about brightness versus covering a color with white. Opacity, white opacity over brightness. This is an actual like programmed transition like you would see in Premiere. So like here's a quick cutscene, right? Let's cut it and move it. I'm just going to show you because this is very similar, and I happen to have this open because I was editing video today. So like we're going to transition from one frame to another. This is without the transition, okay? Here's a cross dissolve. Actually, it's not a it's similar to this is like a little bit more exaggerated, but you can see what I mean. So look at this, look at the way the colors work. You see that? It like does weird things. That's the best way I can describe it. and that's much different than just a brightness. I mean, whatever. You get the point, right? It's not just a fade to white. That spell, it's not just fading to white. It's doing some type of crazy thing. Wait, where's the video? Did I like lose it? Oh, I'm still on it. That's cool. That means you're gonna and they're doing it in battle. So if they're doing it in battle, most likely 100% it'll work when you're walking. So that what that means is you're gonna probably have level transitions, right? So if you go from like one, you know how you do the character transfers? There's probably gonna be options for different types of fades. You know, so you won't have just fade to black, fade to white. You'll probably have like a cross dissolve and a chroma dissolve and a prioritized like chrome sequence, chromatic sequence of dissolves, you know. Let's see what else we got. I think that's it. I think we're done. But yeah, that was fun. I'll probably take this reaction and pop it up on YouTube, because I think a lot of people will enjoy, seeing my take on it, because there's a lot that I kind of was able to unpack that I think most people will miss.